Pastor Durbin, you are making a caricature of utilitarianism as you have been making caricature of the rational and the humanist perspective all through the evening. You don't understand utilitarianism, nor do you understand deontology or virtue ethics.
Welcome back, everyone. Good to have you here again on the channel. So what you are about to watch is a formal debate between two atheist humanist thinkers and two Christian apologists, all gathered on one stage to wrestle with one of the oldest questions in philosophy. Does God actually need to exist for humans to have a moral foundation? Now, on paper, that sounds like a calm intellectual discussion. But what actually unfolds here is something far more intense than that. One side came with philosophy, history, and structured reasoning. The other side came with something very different. And by the end of this clip, you will see exactly what I mean. Stay with me all the way through, because the moment that made my jaw drop happens later in the segment. And if you leave early, you will completely miss it. Also, real quick, drop a comment down below and let me know where in the world you are watching from right now. I genuinely love seeing where this community comes from, so do not be shy. All right, enough from me. Let us get into it.
The topic of the debate is God necessary for ethics? Instead of getting into this debate, the two of us, and maybe some of you too, we have heard a sermon, a Christian sermon. It was not a debate. We wanted something more than that. We wanted to get them out of their boxed hole and get into responding to people with a broader perspective than repeating their same dogma and belief again and again. You know, my point is that not only ethics, but life should not be based on dogma. And Christian God, or any God for that matter, that we know of, which are anthropomorphic, they're made in human image, okay? And that is human creation. If the triangles would have had their religion, I'm sure their God would have had three sides, So anyway, I expected something more than this. Go ahead, Jared.
One thing we all agree on is that we have failed at this debate. And that is because we've been having different debates. In fact, this wasn't a debate, except in structure. Christianity was not the topic of this debate. Jesus was slipped in. I think he'll forgive us. It would have been nice to spend some time on common ground. Morality is greater than each of us. Even if ethics is not absolute, it is bigger than us. It needs to be defensible. It is the conversation. Every religion has its answers to what is right and what is wrong. Each of you, I hope, have your answers about what is right and wrong, and now you are invited to this conversation about ethics. Whether or not we believe in God, we can all be ethical. Whether or not we believe in God, whether or not we believe God is necessary for ethics, we can treat each other well. I know I speak for Dr. Chatterjee as well when I say my priority in this debate has been not only to debate ethics, but to model respectful ethical behavior in a debate about respectful and ethical behavior. Thank you.
We are running over on time, and so I'm going to cut the questions a little bit if that's acceptable with everyone. The format of the questions, I'll ask the questions. The person or the side to whom they are addressed has 2 minutes, and then there's 30 seconds for the other side.
How about we do this 1 minute? 2 minutes is a long time.
2 minutes was what was in the what was
How
agreed.
about we do 1 minute, guys?
I'm good.
Get them done faster that way?
Yep.
Okay. If you're agreeable, there's one question that was asked more than any other, and it starts with the negative side, so we can go back and forth. Is that acceptable? People are dying to hear. How do you explain the empty tomb, Mr. Anderson?
Joseph of Arimathea moved his body. So what happened is I believe that Joseph of Arimathea was a sympathizer of Jesus. I believe Joseph of Arimathea was someone in power. The more status you have, the closer your tombs were to Jerusalem. And so what would have happened to the crucified those crucified would have been thrown into a mass grave. And Joseph of Arimathea did not want that done to Jesus. And so Joseph of Arimathea went out on a limb and he had Jesus put in his own tomb. Like, I think all of this is very historically credible. As I alluded, I did PhD training in New Testament studies.
Here is what gets me every single time I watch this kind of debate. The Christian side walks in with one goal, and it is not to answer the question on the table. It is to preach. And Dr. Chatterjee called it out directly. He said we came here expecting a debate, and instead we got a church sermon. And honestly, he was right. That is not an attack. That is an observation backed by everything you just watched. Think about what the actual proposition was. Is God necessary for ethics? That is a philosophical question. It requires evidence, structured reasoning, and genuine engagement with opposing ideas. But what did the Christian side spend the majority of this debate doing? Cycling through the same faith claims, never once stepping outside the bubble to actually engage with the challenge in front of them. And then Dr. Chatterjee drops one of the most memorable lines of the entire debate. He says if triangles had their own religion, their God would have had 3 sides. I want you to really sit with that, because what he is pointing at is something scholars in comparative religion have documented for a long time. Every civilization in human history built their God in their own image. The ancient Greeks had gods that were jealous, emotional, and politically motivated, exactly like them. The Norse had warrior gods because they were a warrior culture. The Egyptians built gods that reflected the power of the pharaoh. This is not a coincidence. This is a consistent human pattern across thousands of years. And Dr. Chatterjee exposed that entire pattern in a single sentence. Then Jared Anderson drives it home when he says Christianity was not the topic of this debate. Jesus was slipped in. And that is honestly the most clarifying thing said all night. Because once you recognize that, you understand why the Christian side never directly answered the question. They could not afford to. The moment they step away from Jesus and try to build a purely philosophical case for why God is necessary, not helpful, not comforting, but logically necessary for ethics to exist, the argument falls apart. And they knew it.
And then Joseph of Arimathea had himself a very nice Sabbath. And at the end of Sabbath, which was Saturday evening, he went and he asked his servants, hey, could you move that body out of my family's tomb? Thanks. And I think his servants buried Jesus somewhere, and I would love to know where.
Response?
And so the tomb was empty when his disciples found it. Like that is a valid tradition. And fascinatingly, Mark 16, really quick, Mark 16:8 says, the women didn't tell anyone anything because they were afraid. So super interesting.
For the affirmative,
Do I get a response?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm just getting old.
I would like to, in
please.
30 seconds. Of course, there's nothing historical about that at all. That's pure speculation. You have Jesus's own prophecies, his own statements to his disciples, which they were shocked about. What do you mean? Far be it from you that this could ever happen to you. You have all of these things. All that has to be now be made up and fictionalized on the basis of pure speculation for which we have absolutely nothing in a historical sense to substantiate it. That's what you just heard.
Okay, question for the affirmative. How do you respond to the charge that what you're offering is simply circular reasoning? You're assuming your conclusion.
Very good. Any question about ultimate foundations has to be ultimate, right? So someone says, I don't like the fact that you're appealing to God as the ultimate foundation. That seems very circular because that's the nature of an ultimate. It's just that, ultimate. If something claims to be an ultimate and then appeals to something outside of itself to verify itself, that other thing becomes the ultimate. So for example, if I challenge the atheist to give me a reason that reason is necessary, what are they going to do? start giving reasons for reason as necessary, but they haven't provided a foundation for rationality or reason in the first place. They're going in a circle, but a vicious circle, because they haven't provided an ultimate foundation for reason in the first place. And ultimate is just that. Philosophically speaking, it is ultimate. If it appeals beyond itself, it is no longer the ultimate. And Scripture says that God is the ultimate, the reference point, the foundation. And Scripture says that if you deny Him, if you deny His revelation, you become a fool and you cannot know anything. These men tonight showed that they don't know anything. They have no justified, true belief.
Time. 30-second response.
I still hold on to my idea, my claim, that I see nothing but a circular reasoning, You are bringing in all these ideas, but your basis is based on faith, and from that we are deriving all these things. Go beyond that to justify what you were saying. Otherwise, it's arguing in a circle.
Yeah, in just a few seconds, the Bible was produced by the same kind of conversational human thinking that this conversation is and every conversation is.
We have a question from someone with cerebral palsy. He is in a wheelchair. His question essentially is, if society determines that he is a burden on society and he should be removed from that society, does he have a right to say that society is wrong to kill him?
He has absolute right to say that. I don't know why any society, unless it's totally barbaric, is going to say that, yes, society has a right to kill that person. So I don't see any reason why it should be, in fact, a matter of debate. It's understood, and any rational, humane person with a minimum sense of ethics would agree to that.
Yeah, and the person who is most impacted has the most voice.
Now, this is where the debate gets genuinely fascinating, because Jared Anderson, someone with actual PhD level training in New Testament studies, walks through a historically grounded alternative explanation for the empty tomb. And his explanation is not dismissive, it is not mocking, it is rooted in what historians actually know about Roman crucifixion practices and burial customs of that period. He points out that Joseph of Arimathea was a person of high social status, and historically, that meant his tomb would have been located close to Jerusalem. Jared argues that Joseph, as a sympathizer, stepped in to prevent Jesus from being thrown into a mass grave, which was the standard Roman practice for executed criminals. Then, after the Sabbath ended, Joseph simply had the body moved. Jared even cites Mark chapter 16, verse 8, which says the women told absolutely no one because they were afraid. And that detail is significant. If the resurrection story spread from direct eyewitness accounts, why does the earliest gospel end in silence and fear? Then Dr. James White fires back and says it is pure speculation with nothing historical to support it. But here's the problem with that response. The resurrection account itself relies on documents written decades after the events occurred, transmitted through oral tradition and copied by hand across many generations. If Jared's explanation is dismissed as speculation, then the counterclaim requires a level of evidence that was never once provided in this debate. Then comes the circular reasoning exchange, and Dr. Chatterjee lands it cleanly. He says the entire Christian argument is built on faith, and then uses that same faith to validate itself. And Jared follows it with something that should genuinely make people think. He says the Bible was produced by the same kind of conversational human thinking that produced this very debate. That is not an insult. That is a historical observation. And the Christian side had no real answer for it.
Well, we heard it announced tonight, the utilitarian standard that we should work for the well-being and the happiness of the greatest number of people. If you use the utilitarian standard, the greatest happiness and greatest well-being for the most people, then it is right when society says this person is a burden and removing our well-being and our happiness, it is right according to their standard to execute them because it infringes on the well-being and happiness of the most people. If you are somebody that's seen as a parasite in a society, like say, for example, the Jews in Hitler's Germany, then it is right, according to that system, to say we can execute you because you're a parasite or a burden. That's their standard.
Pastor Durbin, you are making a caricature of utilitarianism as you have been making caricature of the rational and the humanist perspective all through the evening. You don't understand utilitarianism, nor do you understand deontology or virtue ethics.
Okay. Question for the affirmative. Why are most wars done in the name of God? And they said, including the wars by Stalin, Hitler, and other leaders of genocide as well. Why would God require man to do this? The scriptures say to not be violent. Jesus preached peace. Please explain.
I'm not even sure exactly what the question is saying, because Stalin wasn't engaging in a religious war. Well, let's put it this way: atheism is a religion, so it was religious on that level because he had an ultimate authority. But if you're talking about most wars, if you're talking about the political wars after the Reformation or something like that, those were due to the relationship of church and state. You had church and state unified together, and so you had battles and wars related to that most definitely violated Jesus' teaching. But so did the connection of those things and the establishment of all sorts of systems of authority that Scripture never ever provided for. So, but putting that together with Stalin stuff leaves me wondering exactly what the question is really all about.
Also, if you indict Christians in history for sinning in some way, there must be some ultimate standard that they're violating.
Right.
30-second response.
Yeah. The question was a standard question against some religious presuppositions. If there is a kind, loving, all-powerful, all-knowing God, as the Christians claim, then why there is so much evil in this world, including Stalin, Mao, and others, for which the Christians don't have any answer.
This is the part where everything comes together. And I need you to pay close attention, because this is where the pro-atheist side does something the Christian side never managed to do all night. They answer a hard question, directly, honestly, and without hiding behind a framework. Someone in the audience, a person with cerebral palsy who uses a wheelchair, asks one of the most personal and important questions of the entire debate. If society decides he is a burden and tries to remove him, does he have the right to say society is wrong? And Dr. Chatterjee answers without hesitation. He says he has absolute right to say that. No theological framework required. No appeal to Scripture. Just a clear, grounded, human moral answer delivered without blinking. But then, watch what happens next. Pastor Durbin tries to trap the atheist position by misrepresenting utilitarianism. He argues that under a utilitarian framework, you could logically justify removing anyone labeled a burden to society. And that is when Dr. Chatterjee delivers what I believe is the single most important moment of the entire debate. He looks directly at Pastor Durbin and says, "You are making a caricature of utilitarianism, as you have been making a caricature of the humanist perspective all evening. You do not understand utilitarianism. You do not understand deontology. You do not understand virtue ethics. And I need you to understand why that moment matters more than it looks." This is not just a personal takedown. This is a structural exposure of the entire debate strategy. The Christian side built their attack on secular ethics by targeting versions of those frameworks that no serious philosopher actually defends. Utilitarianism as a field has spent over 2 centuries developing safeguards, nuances, and refinements specifically to address the kind of edge cases Pastor Durbin described. Attacking a simplified caricature of it and then declaring victory is not winning an argument. It is avoiding one. And then the debate closes with Dr. Chatterjee raising the question that has remained unanswered across thousands of years of theological discussion. If God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and completely good, why does suffering exist? The Christian side offered no answer, and that silence, right at the end of the debate, landed harder than any argument made the entire night. What you just watched was not simply two sides disagreeing. You watched one side come prepared with philosophy, documented history, and genuine intellectual honesty, and you watched the other side arrive with a sermon dressed up as a debate. And the difference was impossible to miss. So, what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.